Hello everyone, my name is Jackie and today I'm here with my May wrap-up. So because I read lots of books in May, I'm going to very quickly tell you something about the books I bought in May and then a little bit more about the books I read in May. So the first books I bought are the second and the third of Avatar: The Last Airbender: The Promise comics, which is a comic series set directly after the end of the TV series. Next book I bought wasn't really a book to read, but I wanted to show you either way. It's the Court of Thorns and Roses coloring book. I haven't started coloring it yet, but I can't wait to do it. The next book I got came with the April Fairy Loot box, which arrived very late this month. So it is Beyond the Darkened Shore by Jessica Leigh. This is a book about Vikings and Celts and just a very good book. And also in May I got Court of Frost and Starlight by Sarah J Maas, for which I bought the Illumicrate Starfall Edition box. And I'm so happy to have it because Sarah J Maas is one of my favorite authors. The next book I got because I had the chance to meet the author and I wanted to get it signed, so I got Galgenmädchen by Jean-Claude Van Rickeghem. I don't know how to pronounce him. And this book doesn't have an English title, so I can't really translate it for you. The original title is Galgenmeid and the author is from the Netherlands. And he signed this book for me. The next book I got for the same event, but I couldn't meet the author, but I could meet the illustrator and I wanted to let her sign the book also. So I got Ich Hashtag, was immer das auch heißen mag. And the title would roughly translate to I, whatever this means. And it's also signed. And it has these beautiful illustrations, and I met this illustrator, so I had her sign the book instead of the author. And the last book I got in May was part of the May Fairy Loot box. It was Onyx and Ivory by Mindy Arnett. This book is absolutely beautiful. I love the sprayed edges, I love the synopsis, I can't wait to read it. So I want to show you one more thing I got in May. It isn't a book, but it's book related, because I pre-ordered the sequel to Even the Darkest Stars by Heather Fawcett, All the Wandering Lights. And if you pre-order it, you could get some stuff from her sent. So I wanted to show you what I got. I got this map of the world, which you can't get anywhere else because in neither of the books has a map in it. I got this bookmark with Even the Darkest Stars on it. I got these two stickers of the covers, Even the Darkest Stars and All the Wandering Lights. I also got a magnet for All the Wandering Light and a signed bookplate. And since I also have a signed bookplate in my copy of Even the Darkest Stars, this will be going into All the Wandering Light. Okay, so that was everything I got sent or bought in May. So now to the books I read in May. I read a total of 23 books in May, which is a huge amount of books. Some of them were just picture books, but not for children. So yeah, I'm just going to show you what I got. The first book I read was The Beauty and the Beast by Gabrielle Suzanne Barbaud de Villeneuve. This is the Mina Lima edition, and yeah, it's just a fairy tale of Beauty and the Beast as told by this French author. And I like the artwork in it very much. It's very beautiful. I like these editions that Mina Lima does of some classics now, and I'm probably going to get some more because it's really beautiful. Also the spine is really beautiful. So yeah, I enjoyed reading this book and I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. The second book I read in May is A Court of Frost and Starlight by Sarah J Maas. When I read this book, I haven't gotten the box at the moment. I wanted to read it immediately after it was released, but my box didn't arrive in time, so I bought the ebook and I read it on ebook. And I love it so much. It's a novella that's supposed to be a bridge between the original trilogy and the spin-off trilogy that will be released. I don't know when. And it's about the week before winter solstice, and it's about them coping with the war and with loss, and also trying to find presents for the others, which is really funny. And I enjoyed this book so much. I loved it so much. And there were some really funny quotes in there, and they were just... Sometimes it was a little bit like reading fan fiction, I think, because they were just so happy and they were so sassy, and normally you don't really get it that much in the original works and more in the fan fictions, but nonetheless I loved it so much. I can't wait for the next one. So I gave this book 5 out of 5 stars, of course. The next books I read are the Avatar: The Last Airbender, The Promise comics. These are about a promise Aang made to Zuko, and each of these books got 4 out of 5 stars. The next books I read I don't own a physical copy of, so I will put the cover up here. So the next book is called Über uns by Eshkol Nevo. You could roughly translate it to About Us. It's not actually one story, it's 3 stories about 3 people living in the same house in different... Yeah, it's about three families living in the same house, and it just tells a story about each of them. And it was made quite interesting. It were totally different ways of telling the story each time, so that was interesting to read, but in the big picture it wasn't so. And I gave this book 3 out of 5 stars. The next book I read is Der Mann, der Luft zum Frühstück aß by Radek Knapp. You could translate the title to The Man Who Ate Air for Breakfast, which totally doesn't make any sense until you read the book. And it was really funny. It's about a young man who immigrates into Austria and just him trying to find a new home here. And it was really funny and I had lots of fun reading it. It's a very short book and I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. The next book I read is called Endland by Martin Schäuble. You could translate it to Endland, so that's very easy. And it's a dystopian novel about Europe, in particular Germany. But it's set only a few years in the future, or maybe even now, and it's just Germany has totally closed all borders and don't want any immigrants in. They even call them invasors. So that's quite disturbing sometimes, and it tells the story of a young soldier from the German army who totally agrees with everything his country does, and about a young girl living in somewhere in Africa, and she tries to go to Germany to become a doctor. It's sometimes quite disturbing because there are some things you can recognize from today, and it's not that far in the future, so it makes you think, I would say, more than most other dystopian books, because most other dystopian books are just so many years in the future that you don't really have that much connection to it. But this book is set in the present, and yeah, so that was quite disturbing. In hindsight I would probably change my rating, but right after reading it I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. The next book I read is Der Tag, an dem mein Großvater ein Held war by Paulus Hochgatterer. You could translate it to The Day My Grandfather Was a Hero. And it's about a young girl who has lost her family and isn't even really sure if she knows her real name because she forgot very much about her past. And she lives during the Second World War. She lives with this family, and someday there are some soldiers coming, and it's just most of the book you have to read between the lines, as they say. Yeah, I didn't really do that very much, and I didn't really want to, and I wasn't really interested in this book. But it had a beautiful writing style. What I liked were the little stories in between some chapters where the little girl retells a story that happened and gives it another ending that was made very interesting. Yeah, but in the end I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. The next book I read is called Ein Mädchen nicht von dieser Welt von Aharon Appelfeld. You can translate it to A Girl Not From This World, and it's also set during the Second World War, and it's very much a fairy tale. It's about two Jewish boys who are sent into the woods to survive the Nazis, and just them trying to survive in there. And there's of course also a girl who helps them, and this girl is not from this world. So yeah, that was another book you had to read between the lines and think about it a lot, and I didn't enjoy it that much, so I also gave it 3 out of 5 stars. Next, I finally got to read Crooked Kingdom, and oh my god, is this... Wow, I was blown away by Six of Crows, but Crooked Kingdom is just such a perfect ending to everything. I mean, just the end. I'm absolutely in love with Cass and Dinesh. I also really like the others, and the ending is just, oh, I would love to tell you, but I don't want to spoil you, so yeah. And I also read on Twitter that Leigh Bardugo plans to write a 3rd book for Six of Crows, but only in a couple of years, so yeah, what am I supposed to do with my life until then? And I gave this, of course, 5 out of 5 stars. The next book I read was the Fairyloot pick for April. It's Beyond the Dark Shore by Jessica Leake. This is about Kiara, a Celtic princess, and Leith, a Viking soldier. And yeah, their whole world is in danger and they have to join forces to save their world, but they're mortal enemies, always were, always will be. And it's very fantastic. I like how it's told, I like the connection between the Celtic and the Viking mythology. I enjoyed reading it a lot. It's a standalone novel. It's probably a little bit much for a standalone novel. I mean, to save the world, to stop the end of the world in only one book is a pretty great goal. Also, the love story sometimes moves a little fast, in my opinion, a little too fast maybe, but nonetheless I like the characters a lot, I enjoyed reading about it a lot, I really like this book, so I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. Next book I read is Unsere Seelen bei Nacht by Ken Teruf. The English title is Our Souls at Night, and it was already made into a movie, so you may have heard about it. And it's about 2 older people, and both their partners already died, and they both feel very lonely, especially at night. So Eddie goes to Lewis and invites him to stay the night at her house, so that they won't be alone. And they're talking a lot about their life and about their loved ones, who they lost, and yeah, just life in general. It's a very beautiful book. It's also kind of sad, especially at the end. There's one character who I absolutely hate. That's the only character that really got me. Yeah, all the others, I mean, they also had some bad stuff happen to them, but it was always nice and more happy than not, and just a good feeling world, until this character shows up and ruins everything, and I hated him so much while reading. Oh my god. So because of the ending of this book, I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. The next book was a reread, because since reading the ebook, my Illumicrate box arrived, and I had of course to read again A Court of Frost and Starlight, and loved it even more the second time around, and again gave it 5 out of 5 stars. The next books I read are a couple of picture books. The first one is called Babel by Arnold Wiestra. I don't think that I pronounce him right. It's a picture book without words about a man in Babel who is an inventor, and he makes himself wings and goes on the top of the Tower of Babel and flies down there. It was a nice story, but the painting style wasn't really what I liked, so I gave it 3 out of 5 stars in the end. The next book I read is Bella Ciao by Maurizio A.C. Coelho. This is a story about some rebels freeing Turin in 1945, and it was inspired by the author's grandparents' story. And it's another picture book without words, which is not my kind of book. But the artwork is very beautiful, as you can see here, and it's very meaningful. You don't need words for the story, yeah? There's so much to read in the faces of the characters that you don't need words in there. But still, without words, it wasn't that much what I liked. But I probably would up my rating at this moment, but directly after reading I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. The next book I read is Die Wölfe von Currenpau by William Grill. The English title is The Wolves of Currenpau, and it's about these hunter Seaton who comes to Currenpau to hunt a wolf pack that makes life difficult for the people living there. The leader of this pack is called Lobo, and it's about him hunting Lobo, but then after hunting him down he realizes that every animal is needed, even wolves. So he turns his life around and starts to try to save nature and animals. It's after a true story. This picture book had some text in it, so that was a little better for me, but I don't really like the art style in there, at least not that much. There are many very small pictures that tell the stories, which I don't really like. What I like are the big pictures at the beginning of each chapter, which is the whole 2 pages. These pictures are very beautiful. So in the end I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. Next I reread Throne of Glass by Sarah J. Maas. This is about the assassin Celaena Sardothien and a competition to become the king's champion, and also about her relationship to the Crown Prince Dorian and his best friend, the captain of the guard, Chaol. While I absolutely love everything Sarah J. Maas, this one is not my favorite book from her. I like it more when there are more fae. But still, there were lots of scenes where I just laughed out loud. It was just hilarious. Or yeah, I love the overall feeling of the series. Yeah, that I get when I talk about the series. But that's mostly about the later books, I realized. I love the series. I don't love this book that much, but nonetheless I enjoyed rereading it a lot. And I can't wait to dive into the next one. And I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. The next book I read is called Der siebente Bruder oder Das Herz im Marmeladenglas by Oyvind Thorsæter. You could roughly translate it to The Seventh Brother or The Heart in the Marmalade Glass or something like this. It's another picture book, it's another fairy tale. It's about 7 brothers. 6 of them go out into the world and they have to bring their brother back a princess, but instead they find 6 princesses of their own who they want to marry. But on their journey back they meet a troll and they go turn into stone. So the 7th brother goes out there to save his brothers, and yeah, so that's the beginning of the story. And while I like the story, I don't really like the art style. I gave it 2 out of 5 stars. The next book I read is called Die Stadt der träumenden Bücher by Walter Moers. You could translate it to The City of Dreaming Books. And this was a comic and it was just, I liked it so much. It's about a guy who wants to be a poet and he goes into this city of books, yeah, where everything in life revolves around books. And he looks for the author of this manuscript that he has, which is the absolutely perfect kind of literature, perfect art of literature. I love the story, I love the artwork. I enjoyed this book very much, so I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. The next book I read is Das Tagebuch der Anne Frank, or in English The Diary of Anne Frank, the graphic diary. So it's just her diary but put into a graphic novel. It was nice reading it again in this other form, but it wasn't really that overwhelming, so in the end I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. The next book I read was In einem alten Haus in Moscow by Alexandra Litvina, translated to In an Old House in Moscow. This book tells 100 years of history in Russia in this house. So you see the family and what happened to them, and you see the furniture and just overall what happens. And it was too much for me. There was so much text, so many papers, so many to look at. It was so full, this book. Each page was so full of information that you couldn't really remember anything at the end. I believe it's a great book for anyone who is interested in Russian history. But for me, who I'm not interested in Russian history, and this was just too much information and I didn't enjoy it, and I gave it 1 out of 5 stars. The next book I read is Good Night Stories for Rebel Girls by Elena Favilli and Francesca Cavallo. This book contains 100 stories about 100 women who did great things for history, or not even for history, who just did great things. Some of them are very well known, some of them I haven't heard of before. About each woman there's 1 page a story and 1 page a portrait painted by different artists. I liked reading this a lot. It's told like a fairy tale every time, because it's supposed to be a good night story for little girls. Some of the artwork I liked, some I didn't like that much. Overall, I liked this book a lot and I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. And the last book I read is Das Skelett von A bis Z von Henri Kapp, I think he's pronounced. The English title is Who Owns These Bones? And this book explains a lot about bones and skeletons, and just the differences between human and animals, and just overall some explanations about bones. And it was very interesting. It was obviously made for children, but nonetheless I enjoyed my time reading it, and I got some new information, some things I already knew, and yeah, I liked it, I enjoyed it. So I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. So, that were all the books I read in May. 23 in total, counting A Court of Frost and Starlight twice because I read it twice. That's a lot of books! And I enjoyed my time reading all of them. And I hope that I will read lots of books in June also. Tell me which books you read in May, or if you have read any of the ones I read or any of the ones I got, and just what you thought about them. And yeah, I'll see you in my next video. Bye!